A massive new trade deal has just been signed between Europe and India. And, this isn't just another handshake, it's sending shockwaves through the entire global economy. So while Brussels and New Delhi are celebrating, there's this huge question mark hanging over Washington. Let's break down what this historic agreement really means for the U.S.
Look, this is way more than just spreadsheets and shipping containers. We're talking about a potential shift in who holds the economic cards on the world stage. So the big question we have to ask is the US actually ready to play its hand in this brand new game?
Okay, so what's actually in this deal? I mean, after years and years of talks, the EU and India finally landed on an agreement. And it really comes down to three key pillars. So think of it like this. It's a 3-for-1. First, it slashes those pesky taxes on goods like cars and machinery. Second, it really opens the door for European services to enter the Indian market. And third, it makes it much safer and more attractive for companies on both sides to invest. It's a whole economic package. And why is Europe so fired up about this? Well, this number right here says it all. We're talking about unlocking access to India's enormous and growing economy of over 1.4 times billion consumers. For European companies, that is an absolute game changer. So yeah, the immediate upside for both Europe and India is just huge. This isn't just about signing some papers. This is about firing up a whole new engine for economic growth for both of them. And we are not talking about small change here. Economists are predicting billions, with a B, in new trade, creating this incredibly powerful economic relationship. It's pretty much a clear win-win for the two partners involved. But, a deal this massive doesn't just stay between the two parties who signed it. It sends ripples out across the entire globe. So let's zoom out for a second and look at that bigger picture. For years, Europe has been really reliant on the US and China for a lot of its goods. Well, now, this deal opens up a new major supplier, India. Getting cheaper access to everything from IT services to pharmaceuticals means Europe can diversify its supply chain, and that, right there, is a huge strategic shift. And of course, an economic partnership like this almost always leads to a political one. By getting closer to the EU, India really solidifies its position as a major global player. This creates a new balance of power that doesn't just revolve around the United States anymore. Which brings us right back to our main question. Now that we understand the deal and its global implications, what are the direct consequences for American businesses, for American workers, and, well, for America's strategic interests? Okay, so here's the bottom line for American companies. It's pretty simple. With lower tariffs, European goods just got a price cut in India. An EU-made car, for example, could suddenly be a much, much better deal than its American competitor, all because of this one agreement. The takeaway here is crystal clear. American companies that are trying to sell their products in India are now facing a much tougher race. They're up against European rivals who've basically just been given a head start. So just to sum up the impact here, the US is looking at more competition, there's a real risk that European investment might start shifting towards India, and it could see a dip in its strategic influence. But it's not all bad news. A richer India, boosted by this very deal, could eventually become an even bigger customer for high-end American tech and other goods down the road. That's the long-term opportunity to keep an eye on. So, faced with this new reality, the United States is really at a crossroads. How does it respond? The next steps it decides to take will be absolutely critical in determining whether this whole thing becomes a long-term challenge or maybe a catalyst for a totally new strategy. Yeah, pretty much every trade analyst out there is saying the same thing. This deal is a huge wake-up call for the US. The old way of doing business? It's over. The global trade map is literally being redrawn, and it's time to adapt. So what's the game plan? Well, experts are pointing to a 3-part strategy. First, the US needs to forge new and stronger partnerships of its own, especially with India. Second, it has to completely rethink its entire approach to trade in Asia. And finally, innovate. The idea is to create products so good, we're talking next-gen AI, cutting-edge biotech, that they win in the market, with or without tariffs. So the EU-India deal has redrawn the map. For the US, this isn't just about economics. It's a major strategic test. The question is no longer if the game is changing. It already has. The real question is, how will the US play its next move? The whole world is watching.